If you're a leader, you're probably facing this tension every single day. Do you go with your gut? Do you think deeply about a problem? Or do you stick to the plan, follow a process that's worked before? It is a really tough balance to strike. And honestly, getting it right is what separates the good leaders from the truly great ones. So today, we are going to break down the two key tools every leader needs: mental models and frameworks. It really all boils down to this one question, doesn't it? When is it time to hit pause and just think? And when is it time to put your head down and execute? That's the core challenge, and we're going to get to the bottom of it right now. And really, the answer is all about understanding the two different kinds of tools you have at your disposal. On one hand, you've got mental models. These are all about how you think. And on the other, you've got frameworks, and those are all about how you act. They're like two sides of the same coin, but you have to know which one to use and when. So, to really get a handle on this, let's dive in. What exactly are these tools? And more importantly, what do they actually look like out in the wild? Okay, let's start with mental models. The best way to think about these is like the operating system for your brain. They're your own internal toolkit for how you see the world, the lenses you use to make sense of everything. So, these aren't step-by-step instructions, nope. They're more like these intuitive patterns that help you cut through the noise of a really complex situation. So a fantastic example of a mental model is first principles thinking. Now, instead of just looking at what everyone else is doing and copying them, this model makes you stop and ask, okay, what's the fundamental truth here? What is the problem we are actually trying to solve? This is where real innovation comes from, building up from the absolute basics, not just imitating what's already out there. Here's another really powerful one: second-order thinking. This is all about playing chess, not checkers. You're looking beyond the immediate win. So for instance, bringing in AI automation might give you a nice efficiency boost right now. That's the first-order win. But what happens down the road? What's the second-order effect? Well, maybe your team's skills start to get a little rusty. This kind of thinking stops those short-term gains from turning into long-term headaches. And our third mental model is inversion. This one is a game changer for managing risk. Instead of just brainstorming all the ways to succeed, you flip the question on its head. You start by asking, how could this go completely and spectacularly wrong? You literally list out all the potential failure points. This forces you to be proactive about risk instead of just waiting for something bad to happen. All right, so that covers the thinking part. Now let's switch gears and talk about frameworks, because these are all about acting. See, unlike mental models, which are internal and kind of abstract, frameworks are external. They're structured. They're like a recipe or a blueprint that gives you a concrete, repeatable set of steps to follow. And a classic example that I'm sure you've all used is the SWOT analysis. You know the drill: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's a simple framework, but its power is that it gives your whole team a shared language, a map that you can all look at together to figure out where you stand. It gets everyone on the same page fast. Then you've got something like the PDCA cycle: plan, do, check, act. This little loop is basically the engine of continuous improvement. It's a framework that makes sure you're not just a one-and-done kind of team. It forces you to build in a feedback loop so you're always learning, always optimizing. It's all about making your execution repeatable and scalable. And don't think for a second that frameworks are just some old-school business school thing. They are absolutely critical today. Take a look at this: an agentic AI architecture. It's a standardized blueprint for building really complex AI systems. By having these defined parts, it saves teams from having to reinvent the wheel for every single project. It is a modern framework for a very modern problem. This table just lays it all out so clearly. Look at the two columns. Mental models, they're cognitive, abstract, personal. They're all about understanding. Frameworks, they're structural, concrete, organizational. They're all about execution. Seeing them side by side like this really makes that difference click, doesn't it? So, okay, we've defined them, we've seen examples. But why does this distinction actually matter so much? Well, because leaning too hard on one or the other can be disastrous. There's a really high cost to getting this balance wrong. You basically end up in one of two traps. On the one side, if you've got great mental models but no frameworks to back them up, you get chaos, just tons of brilliant ideas that go nowhere. But on the other side, if you've got frameworks but no critical thinking from mental models, you get rigidity. You're just blindly following a process, even when it makes no sense. This is that chaos scenario in a nutshell. We've all worked with this person, right? The leader who has these incredible flashes of genius. these amazing gut feelings. But the team is always scrambling. Decisions feel random, and you can never repeat your successes because there was no clear process to begin with.
And then there's the flip side, rigidity. This is that checklist mentality. It's when you just grab a standard model off the shelf and apply it without stopping to think if it even fits your business. You're just going through the motions. It's execution without thought, and it's a recipe for failure.
So, if chaos and rigidity are the two big traps, how do you avoid them? Well, the answer isn't to pick one over the other. The real magic, the secret sauce of great leadership, is learning how to weave them together. And here it is. This is the winning formula. It's a really simple two-step flow. Step 1, you start with a mental model. You use something like second-order thinking to really understand the problem. That's the thinking part. And only then, once you have that insight, do you move to step 2. You pick the right framework to put that insight into action. The thinking always informs the doing. Okay, let's make this super practical. How can you actually use this, like, tomorrow? Here's a quick and easy rule of thumb to help guide your next big decision. So just run through this mental checklist. Are you facing a ton of uncertainty? You need to lean on your mental models to find some clarity. Do you need to do something over and over again, reliably? That's a job for a framework. Making a big strategic call. Mental model first, framework second. And if you need to execute something at scale, you absolutely need a framework, but one that's been chosen with the wisdom of a great mental model. I think this quote just nails it. Frameworks help organizations move faster. Mental models help leaders move wiser. You see, one without the other is just incomplete. You need both. You need to be fast and you need to be wise. So as we wrap this up, I'm going to leave you with a question to think about. For the next challenge that lands on your desk, the next decision you have to make, which tool do you need to reach for first? Is it a time to think or a time to act? Because knowing the difference, that's everything.